What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 72 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lillianwall. Got producer Noah here with me. And Noah, we've got a playoff dub pod, but the people are still not very happy. How are you feeling?
Does this count as a dub? I guess it's a dub pod, but it's also a draw pod?
It's a dub pod. It's a playoff dub pod as the Seattle Sounders played a riveting, high-octane Round 1 best of 3 series opener against the Houston Dynamo at Lumen Field on Monday night. Folks, it was riveting, end-to-end, high-powered attacking action all night long, but the Seattle Sounders did have to settle for a penalty kick shootout victory after the match finished 0-0 over 90 minutes. No one scored, but the Sounders do take a 5-4 penalty kick shootout victory. That's how it works in these best of 3 series. There's no extra time. It's straight to PKs. So that's exactly what happened last night, and the Sounders win the shootout 5-4. So they have a 1-0 lead ahead of Game 2 in Houston on Sunday. We are going to break down this riveting playoff action in our game review. We're going to take your questions as always. We'll hit our agenda check with, I think I put in at least one new agenda. So we're going to hit that. And then we're going to close it out by reacting to the other results from round 1 as the playoffs get into full swing here. There's a full slate of games other than Seattle that we're going to talk about real quick at the end. So yeah, it's going to be a good show. It's going to be a good dub pod, even though I think what you said is right. Like this does not feel like a dub pod. This was easily the most tilted I've seen the fan base after a win. Definitely of this season, and honestly in a long time.
Definitely down the stretch.
It's one of them. I would say it's probably among the more tilted I've been after a win. Yeah. And I know you were tilted.
I was tilted.
After,
I was posting.
You were posting like Evander out
Correct.
there. So
yep.
I feel like I have a pretty good idea on the takes you're gonna have on it, but we're gonna get into it. But before we do that, I did want to let you all know that Lobbing Scorchers is a part of the Sounder at Heart podcast network. If you want to get the best independent Seattle soccer coverage, consider supporting us by going to sounderatheart.com/LS. That's sounderatheart.com/LS. Scroll down to subscribe and support to get 30 days completely free. Every sign up through our link helps support and grow this show. And Noah, we've got some exciting news today. We hit our 40th sub.
We did.
We've been gunning for that for about 2 weeks to get from 38 to 40. We finally did it, and you know what that means? It means it's the end of a tradition. We are no longer going to read the entire sub list. I know this was a polarizing topic for many of our listeners. Some people loved it. Some people hated it. But we did come to the ultimate conclusion that 40 is just too many names. So we are going to start reading out all the new subs, but also thanking all our subs every single episode for sure, because we love you guys. We just can't read out 40 names every episode. Noah, who is our 40th?
Our 40th here was Jordan Bukasis, I believe. Sorry if we mispronounced your last name.
Jordan, tell us how your name is pronounced. Thank you.
And also, we had a new one as well. Tim Hamilton. Great name. That's
Tim
like
Hamilton.
Yeah.
Part of the Tim community.
Should we do it? Should we do one last time?
For the road.
Just for the road. This is it.
Okay, for all you out there that hate this part, this will be the send-off.
This is it. This is the last one.
Yes. Do it.
Are you ready?
I'm glad
Kenneth Wade, Joey Pasquinelli, David McCoy, Owen Mason, Daniel Pavato, Samuel Fount, Ian Mitchell, Christopher Smith, Norm Bontier, Thomas Martin, Greg Hoker, Chris Maley, Andy Hill, Mike Lentini, Nate Bontier, David Rodriguez, CJ and Miles Marinakis,
my nephews,
Mark Ottinger, Zach Heckman, David Pope, Brian Morton, Claire Berger, Robert Singh, Tyler Nakatsu, Steve Hudson, Choska, Patrick Sexton, John Hammaker, Amama Bach, Justin Walker, Jay Anders, Ryan Shane, Nathan Jones, Benjamin Dubashar, Isaac Johnson, Matthew Burns, Ryan Boone, Brian Chow, Bill Breitenbuck, Jordan Bukasis, and Tim Hamilton.
Tim and Jordan, thank you all so much. And in all seriousness, thank you to all of our subs. We love and appreciate you guys. And God, that really, that made me want to bring the tradition back. But if you'd like to join the ranks of our wonderful subs, sounderatheart.com/LS. Also, if you are listening to this and you haven't done so yet, sub to the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube. We're on the road to 650 subs. We're at 632 right now. We're thereabouts. So
close to 640.
Please help us on the drive to 640 and then 650. And shout out to all of our new audience on YouTube. All right, let's do this game review. Noah, let's do this begrudging dub pod.
I feel like the fans might rather hear the supporters' names again than actually dive into this.
Yeah, but I think it'll be good to to get into the fine points of exactly what has the people so riled up
That's true.
after this dub. But first, let's start with our lineup reaction, as we always do, because there was some stuff going on with this lineup. I think the question that we've been talking about and that we're going to get to on this show is the De La Vega versus Georgie debate.
Correct.
De La Vega started this game. Georgie came off the bench. And also you had JP back in the double pivot with Christian, with Obed suspended because of his red card. I'll just say that I wasn't surprised to see De La Vega get the start and Georgie come off the bench, but I think what I was paying attention to was, will that be the right decision, and will that still be how they line it up going forward? And I think we got some answers on that in this game. Maybe not definitive answers, but definitely I have my thoughts on how to approach that going forward. And then I think the JP thing is interesting too, because Obed's going to be available next week, and then there is an odd man out between JP, Christian Roldan, and Obed Vargas. So we're going to talk about that too. Noah, what did you think when you saw this lineup?
I was shocked. I wasn't surprised. This is like exactly how you have to line it up at this point. I don't think that there was any question in my mind that it was going to be De La Vega starting. You got to kind of pray and hope that he breaks out. And who else is going to replace Obed Vargas but the man whose job he took? So wasn't very surprised. And I was honestly like, hell yeah, this is a great lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's what they've been running. It's what I expect them to run with maybe minor alterations, but this is pretty much what you got going forward into the playoffs here. No goals in this game, so we don't have any goal breakdowns, unfortunately, but I did write down the key moments, so let's go through those. I think the first major event in this game was Jordan Morris exited with injury in like the 52nd or so minute, which was what was later revealed to be hamstring tightness. Brian Schmetzer said after the game, sounded more precautionary than like a serious injury, but I would say his availability for game 2 is definitely in doubt. He was replaced by Rui Diaz, and if Jordan doesn't go, Schmetz said that Rui Diaz is going to be out there in game 2. So we will see how that goes. But really, like, with where this team stands right now, they've been playing much better on offense over this last stretch of the season, but predominantly on the back of Albert Rusnak and Jordan Morris. If you take one of those guys out, like, it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of juice in attack. Rui Diaz did not get especially close to scoring after he replaced Jordan. So I think definitely Jordan's status is going to be front of mind going into this game, because, Paul Rothrock might bail you out with one goal in Houston in game 2, but that's pretty much your chance at scoring if Jordan Morris can't go.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jordan Morris wasn't very effective either in this match. I mean, even through 52 minutes, he was incredibly ineffective, I would say, and that was concerning to me. I think I tweeted something like, this made me rethink the whole, like, I think we need to sign a 9, because you're getting into a defensive game like this where Jordan can be really effective sometimes, but he's not that guy you're going to call on every single game, especially in like such a tough defensive matchup like Houston is.
The other key moment in this game, the Houston Dynamo got a red card, went down to 10 men with a lot of time left to go in the second half. Coco Carrasquilla, CONCACAF Player of the Year.
Well, okay, what is that?
I don't know.
Like, I keep hearing people mention that. What does that mean?
It's a good question. I have no idea.
Like, is
I just hear people dish it, and so I'm dishing it too.
I dig
but
it.
You're
Yeah,
right. He is a good player though, and he's like a very important player for Houston. I definitely. It's not an insignificant loss for them. The red card itself, I think it was kind of hard to tell what happened at first, but it looked like he kicked out at Rusnak after there was a big brouhaha after JP committed a tactical foul for a yellow card, and there was a lot of trash talking, players exchanging unkind words, and it looks like in the midst of that, Carrasquilla both kicked at Albert Rusnak, and then also his hand made contact with Rusnak's face at one point. So really, he double whammied himself. Those are both red card offenses.
Can't do that.
Yeah. So I don't think that was especially I mean, maybe it was if you talk to the Dynamo fan base, but it seemed like a pretty straightforward red card, and that definitely, as much of a storyline as Jordan's potential absences for Seattle in this game. Karaskia is a brutal loss for them. The midfield with him and Artur and Hector Herrera, that's the strength of their team. And you take honestly any one of those guys out, and it limits them. And it's not like they were firing on offense either in this game, even with Karaskia.
No.
So we might see another 0-0 PK shootout in game 2. But either way, both teams with big losses in this game. We'll see if Jordan plays. But, Seattle loses their starting number 9, and Houston loses one of their best midfielders. So,
I was shocked at how long this video review took, though, for this red card. I mean, I can understand it was like a weird off-the-ball play, but it took like 10 minutes.
I didn't understand what happened at first. I thought the offense they were reviewing was related to when Jackson Reagan went down.
Same, yeah.
And then like they weren't showing the replay on the broadcast that had like the sequence with the interaction with Rusnak. So I was like, they must be seeing something that was violent conduct, but I don't really see what that is on the replay. But then finally at some point they showed what happened between Karski and Rusnak, and I was like, oh, okay, that looked like a double red card, frankly. Mm-hmm. But I think that ultimately ended up just making this game more frustrating because Seattle was up a man for so long and they still couldn't score. And I think that's where you get into the uneasiness and consternation people are feeling about this result. Yeah, you won in PKs, but when you're up a man in a playoff game in the second half, especially with that much time left
at home,
you really you need to score a goal and not let it get to penalties. Seattle got lucky in this game. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But that's a good segue into, I think, our main topic for this game review, Noah, that I was going to have us debate. I'm going to start with the basic question that I think is on most people's minds, which is, should Sounders fans be happy or tilted about this win? Tilted meaning upset.
Yep.
For those of you who don't speak our Lobbing Scorchers lingo. So I'm going to lay out both sides of this argument, and then we're going to talk about which side that we agree with. I think I already know what you're going to say. I have my own take. So I'm just going to lay out the positives and negatives of this result for Seattle, and then we're going to tell you what we think. The positives. I do think there is an extent to which anytime, but really especially in the playoffs, a win is a win is an applicable saying. You got a clean sheet in this game, and I think everyone knows that an elite defense can take you far in the playoffs. And really, it's a scenario where you could argue it doesn't, like, how you win it is kind of immaterial at a certain point. This win counts just as much as if they had gone out there and beat the Dynamo 5-0. So there is one lens of it that you can, where you can look at it like that. Negatives on the flip side. No goals at home. You got shut out at home again, which is something that happened way too much this year. And that plays into a larger theme of Seattle's home form not being good enough this year, which is something we've talked about a lot about on the show. And really for the last couple years, Lumen used to be a fortress. It used to be a place where you came in and it was intimidating and it was really difficult to play. Teams had a lot of trouble getting results. Seattle, they only lost 2 home games this year, but they drew 6. And teams like Austin FC came in here and got 0-0s. There's at least one other really bad 0-0 that I'm not thinking of at home. This was another 0-0 at home. Not good. Like, you need to be scoring even if the numbers are even, which brings me to my second negative. You didn't take advantage of a red card that happened pretty early in the game. That is a tailor-made situation where I feel like Sounders teams of past years, and just in general, if you're a contender and you go up a man in a playoff game with that much time left, that's where you go for the jugular, right? That's where you got to make your play and, like I said, not let that game get to PKs. And I think the final negative that I'll say is that there is a simple reality that you're not going to beat LAFC or, frankly, even the LA Galaxy, who you've beat previously in Leagues Cup convincingly. But, like, you're going to have to travel for those games if you get by Houston. And if they shut you out, they're going to score on you.
Yeah.
So you got to, a win is a win, but you should be real about that. Noah, go ahead and give your take first on the positives and the negatives of the result. Then I'll tell you my take on your take.
All right. Here's my positives, right? Yes, because this is the world's dumbest first round playoff format, and you can score 100 goals and it only counts as one. Yeah, you're right. This is, by all accounts, a win that like takes you and propels you more than anything, right? The bad news is exactly what you said. This is not going to fly against LAFC, LA Galaxy. This shit isn't going to fly against Minnesota United. Like, you have to score. I understand that Houston is a really good defensive team, and this is supposed to be a really good defensive matchup, but I called this embarrassing because how are you not going to come out and play playoff soccer? It also just showed your incredible weaknesses. Your 9 goes down, and you look terrible. You look like we look like last year's team where it was XG Merchant facilities. And then even more embarrassing, it's like, I thought Pedro de la Vega was playing incredibly poorly, and just everything felt off. It felt wrong. It was boring soccer. It didn't feel like that playoff intensity. And you have to take that and propel that into an away game at Houston, and then let's say that they lose that game in penalties or lose that game straight up. You got to play another game at home just to then, on short rest, go and play either LA or Vancouver. Those are one and done games. Yeah. Not getting these early games one and done and getting your confidence up, that's embarrassing, and that's bad, and that's where I land on it.
Okay, that was a scathing review. A lot to unpack there. I want to hit on point you made first real quick. Hopefully this isn't too much of a rabbit hole, but what you mentioned about the format, I wanted to give my take on that because there's been a lot of takes on that, and because I mean this is the second year where they've had these round 1 best of 3 series where like you said, and Stephen Fry was talking about this after the game too, actually, like how much you win by doesn't have any effect like it would in a series that's decided on aggregate. So I agree with that criticism, and I think that the 2-legged series of years past, the home and away decided by aggregate, what was wrong with that? Like, I liked that. I thought that because here's the thing. I actually I think there is something to a format where for at least some portion of the playoffs, or in the beginning like this in this case, where you have teams that have to play each other over multiple games and not having it be a single elimination throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Because what I liked about the home and away series that they used to do is that over that much game time, the team that's actually better is usually going to win. Right. And I think it eliminates some of the randomness and luck from it, which some people think the luck and randomness of single elimination playoffs are what make it exciting. And I agree with that to an extent. And I like having the single elimination for the later rounds and for MLS Cup. But I don't mind an early series where when you have the teams that played much better in the regular season playing against the lower seeds, have a series where like the better team has like actually a much bigger advantage that they've earned throughout they played in the regular season. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So I don't,
because you could be the Columbus Crew right now, where now you're sitting behind, having to go to New York control for penalties.
Right. Yeah. And
move on.
Exactly. So my thing is like, I actually like having early in the playoffs, having a multi-game series. But I would just go back to the home and away 2-leg decided by aggregate, because I also think aggregate scoring, I like that better personally. Same. Yeah. Because if you win by a lot, like 5-0, you get rewarded for like how much you won by and how well you played. So I think that's better. But the other thing I wanted to talk about real quick with this was a rabbit hole, but I just have
might as well hit it here.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about the format. The other thing I wanted to say about the format is that a lot of people are criticizing it because it's sort of this Americanization of the sport. Like it's like a playoff like you would see in another American sport. But like, my take on that is I don't mind instances where MLS kind of leans into the fact that it's the United States league. And in fact, there are certain ways, not necessarily format related, where like my example for where I wish they leaned into this type of stuff more is just with the club names, like
yeah.
how every team copies the European format of
Right.
like SC and FC, and you have Real Salt Lake and Inter Miami.
Yeah.
Like I would like I think it would be better if MLS teams were remember like the Kansas City Wizards?
Yeah,
are
bring it
just like
back.
straight up named like we
Dallas
would have,
Burn.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think that's
Metro
more
Stars.
that's more authentic to being the top flight league in the United States than it is to have like all these FCs and SCs and Reals and Inters. That's like it feels like you're copying something, whereas like the Kansas City Wizards and the Dallas Burn, that's like our way of doing it, right? I don't know if this is making sense.
No,
but like,
it's not. But Cook.
but like I don't like. I mean, I don't know. Do you think FC and SC and all that stuff? I think that's kind of like I said, it comes off like copying more. So like anyway, the point is like if the format is a little more like that, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I don't really like the best of three because I think the home and away aggregate is better. So that's my really long take on the format.
So your take is bring back the New York City, New Jersey Metro Stars.
Yeah, or just names like that.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe that's a bad take.
No, I like it. I feel like here's what I'll say. In bringing us back to where we were, this game wasn't the end of the world, but I feel like it was a foreshadowing match, and I'm not looking forward to having to grit my teeth through this next game and then have to go again to Satan's house, go to Denny Bouanga's home, and get my ass beat.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I just, and that's why it's embarrassing because I thought we would have put up more of a fight in this early round.
On the topic of embarrassing, I wouldn't go that far personally. What happened to the Portland Timbers, which we covered extensively? That's a meltdown. That's embarrassing.
That's even more than embarrassing.
Yeah. So like when I use the term embarrassing, like I'm thinking like disgraceful meltdown, like you commit a red card, like you look like you don't belong on the field. A playoff game where that ends in a 0-0 and you win in PKs, I would use the terms tilting and disappointing to describe that. Embarrassing, I think, is a little excessive. You got a playoff win and you kept a clean sheet, so
it just
I don't
felt
think,
embarrassing.
Underwhelming is the other word that I would use for that. And I do think there is an embarrassing aspect to being up a man for that long and not being able to score.
It's not that. It's not
like I'm judging it also relative to like I said, the Timbers, they embarrassed themselves. The Rapids, which we'll talk about later, that's embarrassing.
Right.
A game that you won in the playoffs, to me, by definition, it isn't that bad.
Yeah. I don't think that the world is ending. I think that it was embarrassment, one, because of my own expectations that I put on this club to perform in the playoffs, both on this podcast and in my own headcanon. And two, some of the player performances were objectively awful and embarrassing. And like those players, I'm sure, are feeling that. And so I think when I said that, it was more of a like, wow, this performance, I came in with such confidence that now I have to fully reassess my take, and I'm not looking forward to having to continue to watch this team through the playoffs. That could turn around. It's not the end of the world, but it was like, wow, I have to tuck my tail between my legs and be like, okay, yeah, like we might get cooked.
There's been times this season, and I think this was another example of when it's like PTSD for the XG merchant days.
Yes.
This game felt like that, especially during the segment where they were up a man for that long and still couldn't score.
Yeah.
I think that's a good segue into we're going to do our Rusnak Brigade update real quick and then get into our agenda check. Rusnak Brigade update, it was a pretty hot game for them.
Yeah,
I mean, anytime you get shut out at home in the playoffs, the pitchforks are going to be out. And you know what I would say about that is like it's actually, you know, it's totally fair to criticize the number 10 in a playoff game where the team gets shut out at home. I think I would put it not all on one guy. I would put it on pretty much on the whole offense, man. Like I didn't really think anybody was effective. I thought the midfield and the back line defended well, but as far as just getting anything going in attack, no one covered themselves in glory. Albert Rusnak included, and that's that's coming from a pod that's been very pro Rusnak and thinks that he had an excellent year. He didn't have a very good game here, and none of the attackers did. I don't think there's any attacker that you could look at in this game and say they really stepped up and played well.
Including Paul Rothrock, which I hate to say.
I mean, yeah, no one. But Paul Rothrock's been balling all season, so like I'm not gonna condemn anybody just for one bad game, but it was definitely a disappointing, underwhelming performance. And like, I mean, we got to be real. Like 0-0, even if you won the shootout, that's not a good result. Like it's not.
It's objectively not.
I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. All right, let's hit this agenda check because there's some hot button topics in here. This first one is, I think this is the biggest thing that you all were replying to me with in the crowdsourcing after the game on Twitter. The Georgie should start over Pedro de la Vega agenda, and I think let's work in our general de la Vega takes here, because this is the biggest talking point after the game. I think it's safe to say this was his worst game since he came back from injury. Probably his worst game.
I think at the club
as a Sounder.
Yeah.
I think he would probably tell you that. I think you could see that in how he reacted when he got subbed off. I don't think he was Leo chewing at Schmetz. I think he was frustrated with himself and how he played. That's what it looked like to me. I'm inferring that, but that's what it looked like to me.
I did tweet something silly about like, why are you chirping the coach? You played like shit. But I mean, that was more of just like a engagement bait. Like, I don't really think that's. I
thought he was Leo chewing it too, but then when they cut to him on the sidelines,
he looked pretty.
He was He was like, it looked like he was like borderline crying.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be crying too if I played like that.
But so a lot of people were saying after the game that they feel like that the main agenda I saw expressed after the game was that Georgie should be getting these starts at this point over De La Vega, and I'll just give you my opinion on that agenda. I am pretty much there. Like, I think Georgie looks better every time he's on the field and more dangerous, and the offense looks more dangerous. Like, when I said no one stepped up earlier, he's the only one I think that you could argue was really bringing it and looked like any sort of meaningfully dangerous out of anyone. And I just think right now he's more fun to watch, more substantively dangerous. He's better at taking on defenders one-on-one. The offense as a whole seems to just feel a lot more dangerous when he's on the field. And I think his skill set is great as a super sub, but with De La Vega just not in form and like really looking like he looked like a broken man at some point last night. And there was just there was clips going around of all the passes that he missed, and it felt like
his turnovers were leading to really dangerous chances.
He was turning
Houston.
it over, and what it felt like was as it kind of spiraled on him, like as the mistakes piled up, it got into his head and it was causing more mistakes.
Yeah,
and that's sort of like a place I hadn't really seen from him yet. I think so far. He's been hit or miss with some good moments, but not a lot of final product. But like we've seen, like he wasn't like detrimental. I felt like it kind of got there.
This was detrimental, and I think Brian even alluded to that. He said, "I would have loved to have him play more minutes, but I had to do what was best for the team." Which is like, sorry, buddy, you are playing so poorly that we need to take you out.
Yeah, which to be fair, like. I would be very concerned if that had been what he looked like all season. I don't think he's looked anywhere close to that all season. It hasn't been like he hasn't broken out, and it hasn't been as productive as it needs to be, and he hasn't been healthy for the most part.
Right.
But that was a tough game for him. And I think it's just sort of getting to the point where you really have to start thinking of it that any production that you get from him in the playoffs is just a bonus, and you sort of have to plan as if you're not going to get anything from him.
Yeah,
which is not. I think we said before the playoffs that any notion of this team being a serious contender, making a serious run, him coming good and becoming some sort of positive contributor in the playoffs is almost like a prerequisite for that. So I think their ceiling and their status as potential contenders is undermined if I think the thing is it would have to take such a big leap from where it is now to get to a point where he's meaningfully contributing to an MLS Cup run. It's just
And I don't think it's fair for him.
No,
to expect that.
No, it's not. It's unreasonable. It's just unrealistic.
Yeah.
So
to go back to the Georgie starting take, I think that allows De La Vega a better headspace because you are playing that super sub role. I thought he looked his best in the second half of play, like throughout this entire season. I thought the best, coming out of that locker room on the second half was when he had his best halves of soccer. And I just generally think that like where he's at in his headspace, he needs to build his confidence any way he can. And Brian giving him that opportunity to be like, all right, kid, get in there, make an impact, cause chaos, do your thing. That is such an easy role to build confidence for players. Like, okay, this is a stupid-ass comparison, but when I was a player in middle school and I had a terrible slump in my career, my coach basically just had me be like a super sub or like a guy who would just go in and like to piss people off or like to do a specific job. And like my confidence in my own play came back, and then, I could start again or I could do all these other things. Completely different than what a professional soccer player is playing, but having Georgie start, who is meaningfully at least challenging the defense in different ways, and
he's playing with just the gulf in confidence that between the two that they're playing with right now is like Georgie's like brimming with confidence. It seems like he's having the time of his life every time he's out there. De La Vega, he looks depressed.
He looks depressed, lost, confused, and I think for everybody's sake, Georgie needs to be starting over De La Vega. I think we've both been on this, and I think that the De La Vega is the savior is dead. It's been dead. But more than that, anything you get from him this season is gravy, and I hope that they can really zone in and focus on fixing him this offseason.
Yeah. I think it's pretty much all about next year on this topic at this point. Next agenda. So let's talk about this JP Christian Obed situation. Obed's coming back. The agenda here is that the JP should be the sub if Obed is available. Christian rolled on, Obed in the double pivot. That's my take on the agenda. It is weird to think of a first choice starting 11 with a healthy JP where he is not in it. I think that this Christian Obed double pivot is what's been working lately. And here's another thing about this game that we didn't talk about. Like, I think there is a case to be made that a lot of the offensive drop-off in this game compared to what we've seen in previous weeks where Seattle's offense had been playing a lot better might have been attributable to Obed not being in the lineup. I think this game we kind of saw how important he is, like just his creativity, how good he is in possession, his vision, just basically all the things that have made him a breakout star this year. And one of the, number 7 on 22 under 22. We saw Seattle miss that. There is no way that he comes off the field in a first choice 11. No way. And I feel the same way about Christian, but think that he's back to be playing this position again. So I think JP comes off the bench.
Yeah, I thought Christian behind Yamar was the best player on the field. Like he was the second best player on the field. You've got to sit JP. I thought it was awesome, one, that he was able to get a lot of minutes because he's going to need to be used in this playoffs.
You will need him.
Like you're going to need him. You're going to need him to be healthy. But Obed Vargas has to start. His interceptions in midfield that turn over into these counterattacks work so much better with Jordan Morris. Would even work so much better with Raul. It has to be. It has to be him. I think you're right. Like we are finding out just how valuable Obed is to the offense, but also to the defense. Like this kid is a legitimate piece to unlocking any kind of quality from this team. And the Obed stock is up.
Yeah,
the dollars, they are going to come in at some point. I think
if I had to point to anything to feel good going into game 2 here, it would be that Obed's coming back. And I would be surprised if it didn't look better in attack just with him back in the lineup.
I fear that we're going to have to see Raul start though.
Which, we can talk about that too. But
Yeah.
I do think
Fuck it. Start Danny Musovski.
However, Moose got to play in this game, which I thought was
he
unexpected.
Listen, he was 2 for 2 on his passing, so I don't want to hear it. Okay, he's the GOAT.
Okay, next agenda. So Jackson Reagan, as we talked about on the last show, finalist for Defender of the Year, along with Steven Moreira and Jordi Alba. So we know that he's a finalist now. We talked about his chances of winning it on the last show, but the agenda is that he should win it.
Yeah,
he should. If I'm looking at these 3 finalists, 2 of them are like fullbacks that are like they're sort of two-way attacking players. Jackson Reagan's the only CB, the only real defender in there. I don't know if he's going to win it. I think probably Jordi Alba is going to win it because he's the biggest name and he had a pretty crazy year and he's the best player at his position, arguably ever.
Right.
But if we are going by the true spirit of the award and giving it to a CB who's a defense-first player and not this gimmicky fullback stuff, Jackson Reagan should be the pick.
No, I'm in agreement. I
didn't vote for him. I didn't think he would have a chance before he got named a finalist, but
I wouldn't have voted for him either. So I don't think you're in the minority there. I personally loved the way he played last night. I thought he's
been a beast lately.
He buried that PK, right? He took a PK, right? Or am I imagining?
No,
that?
He did.
Yeah, he buried that PK. I think he's awesome. I think he should win it. Fuck the fullback bullshit. Let's get a real defender in there. A real big-headed, blue-blooded Michigan Big Ten boy.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So I think that's it for the agenda check, but that what you just said did remind me. We forgot to talk about Steve Clark in the game review.
Oh yeah,
because Steve Clark
rat tail agenda check.
So his rat tail was a big topic of discussion, but also
Can I say something controversial that Sounders fans might hate about this? I just want to get it out there before you
please.
can. I loved his shithousery.
I thought it was sick. Yeah,
I know that was I super happy to see him so incredibly deflated after that penalty shootout? Absolutely. I mean, just top bins, but like the rat tail, the chirping ECS and shaking his little rat tail at them, picking up the ball, moving it around.
Yeah,
dude, I love that shit.
Yeah.
I love that shit.
No, I had no ill will towards that, and you could see how pumped he was after Houston got it to the PKs because he knew that their chance at trolling a result in this game came down to their ability to see out a 0-0 draw playing down a man for like 40 plus minutes, and they did
objectively impressive.
Objectively impressive, and I do think like when we talk about like if it was embarrassing or the most disgraceful result that we've ever seen, I don't want to not give the Dynamo their credit for that. There's a very high degree of difficulty on what they pulled off, which was playing that length of time down a man and getting a 0-0 in Seattle, which, getting a 0-0 in Seattle isn't the impressive accomplishment necessarily that it used to be. But I mean, in the playoffs for a Houston team that generally doesn't play well here, I mean, they cooked on that. I can't hate on that. Mm-hmm. And the Steve Clark antics were at least entertaining on a game that was kind of lacking for entertainment. But
the Rothrock antics were good too. Did you see the little the Rothrock wave?
Playoff Rothrock. Oh, that good shout. Good shout. Yeah. So after the Carrasquilla red card, imagine training to play professional soccer for your entire life, and you've come up and really just given your all to it, and it's been all you've thought about your whole life, and you get to the playoffs with your professional team, and you get a red card and you get waved off the field by Paul Rothrock from Capitol Hill. That's tough. But that was a great moment for sure. Like he gave him the bye-bye. So there was some good Rothrock shithousing, and I think playoff Rothrock,
he's been activated.
And like he's kind of that type of player.
Playoff Pauly.
He's a kind of I'm going to be a pest and get in your head type of player. I think playoff Pauly, we're going to see even more of that. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, I think that was it for the agenda check and all that. We got some questions from you, the people. So thank you, as always, to everyone who submitted after the game. We're going to knock out a few here. Noah, what do we got?
Welcome to the question and answer section. Today's questions are dominated by one player in particular who you will find out.
It's a lot of De La Vega.
Here shortly.
Let's just do it.
Matt asks, what is going on with Pedro De La Vega? His positioning and runs were constantly great, but the second he got the ball at his feet, his decision-making and passing were nowhere to be found. Anyone got his pass completion percentage handy?
I don't know about his pass completion percentage. I don't imagine that's high. To me, the answer is just he's in his head. He's in his head.
67% accurate passing.
That's tough. When you are psyching yourself out like that and you make one mistake and it snowballs, it just like it kind of gets away from you.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, what I saw in this game was a player who is overthinking things, trying to do too much, and is in his own head.
You know, for De La Vega, it's like he has had everything go wrong for him, and now he has to go into the playoffs, and he's feeling this pressure, not only from, I'm sure, his fellow teammates, but even more from himself, the media, you know. I feel like every national pundit is like, well, if the Sounders are going to do well in this playoff, Pedro de la Vega has to come and make an appearance. And it's like, that is real pressure. And it's time that Brian sits him and he's just has this super sub slow down his thinking. And yeah, at the end of the day, when you're missing them and he passes and just out of the game and out of your head, like there's not much you can do but like try and reset. So thank you, Matt, for that question. Wesley had a completely new question as well relating to a different player, totally not De La Vega. Wesley asks, the two most passionate players on the field who play with the most intensity are Rothrock and De La Vega. How would you describe why Paul has been able to channel that passion effectively and Pedro not so much?
Okay, yeah, so I'll tell you why, which is that you're talking about two players, one of whom has the most pressure on him on the entire team in Pedro de la Vega, like you just sized up, from himself, from outside sources, I think from everyone on the team. There's the weight of expectations, and there is a lot of pressure that comes with that, being a big money transfer, getting the number 10. You feel like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders. The other guy has the least amount of pressure on him, arguably, of any player in MLS or any soccer player in the world at the moment. Paul Rothrock is just he's hyped to be playing pro soccer at all, and I think a big theme of the season with the Rothrock breakout has kind of been him seizing the opportunity when he really had nothing to lose. There's no pressure on Paul Rothrock. If Paul Rothrock never played an MLS minute, no one would bat an eye. Pedro de la Vega is the centerpiece of the club for the next 3 or 4 years, ostensibly. You know, there's just a huge gap in how much pressure is on these two guys, and I think that's why you've seen Paul Rothrock really seize the opportunity and thrive, because he's got nothing to lose. And where De La Vega, I think it's pretty clear to me that the pressure has gotten to him a little bit. So
yeah, I mean,
it's a good question, though.
I do think that Rothrock has a similar amount of pressure, but in a completely different way. It's I believe in myself, though. Like, Rothrock is fully bought in on himself, and you guys should go read Tim Foss's piece if you haven't. We pumped it already, but it's so good. And, you know,
Noah took the photos.
I took the photos, whatever. But, you know, he was ready to give up. Not ready to give up. He was not ready to give up. Like, he was like, you know what? This hasn't been going right, but I'm going to just put my head down and work, right? That's super easy for a player like that. It's not easy, but mentally it's like, my focus is on getting into the starting lineup. And then my focus, once I'm in the starting lineup, is just playing consistently and having fun. And also, his whole family is here, right? Paul Rothrock has his entire family here as a support system.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
He can live at home. He was literally living at home, right? And on top of that, right, like, this is where he grew up. There's so much comfort and feeling and all of those things. Pedro de la Vega, as a young person, came here on a huge transfer with huge media, you know, speculation. Fans are unhappy with the way he's performing. He's unhappy with the way he's performing. Legitimately the weight of the world on this man's shoulders. And that can take a toll on just about everything. Like, shit, when I'm depressed, I don't want to get out of bed. I can't imagine feeling that and then also having to come back from injury and then also like you feel the weight of the team on you. That's so much. That's so much. So I think it's really just like they are in similar positions like vaguely, but they're so like not even on the same playing field. But give Paul Rothrock a DP contract is what I'm hearing from both of us here. Craig asks, based on tonight's performance, can we now say Pedro de la Vega is a bust? We're going to add on to the
I mean, you
the
can
way
go
of
in
the
my
world
mentions,
here.
but no, I think this is another big question that everyone is asking. It might be delusional, but like I mean, I've been saying 1,000 minutes is when I'm going to like make more of a definitive judgment. I really honestly think it's pretty hard to judge this season for him on a whole, man. I really do. Like, he wasn't healthy the whole time. Even when he got healthy, it clearly is taking him a while to like get back to fitness. He's in a situation where it's all new teammates that he had to develop chemistry with to begin with that he didn't get to pretty much at all this year. So, and they have so much invested in him and so much invested in the signing that I think the way they're gonna handle it, whether the fans think he's a bust or not, the way that they're gonna handle it is they're gonna say this year we're just gonna chalk this up to he was injured the whole time, couldn't really get acclimated, didn't have the chemistry, never got his feet under him here. We're gonna just like chalk that, reset next year, go into it, get him healthy over the offseason, take it from square one, and see if we can actually make this signing come good. So that's a long way of saying, like, I don't think you can call him a bust yet. I don't think I just think there's like a very clear kind of amount of sample that you need to see. Maybe not an exact number, but just for me in my head, I know how much I need to see before I make a judgment like that. And we're just not there yet numerically.
Yeah. I think he's in a tough position too, because as a DP, it's like, do you let him go and play for Tacoma to get minutes? Like,
you would never do that
can't.
with a player that high profile.
But
no.
it's like something like that to build confidence, then that's weeded out, right? You have a guy like Brian, who I love Brian Schmetzer, but I don't know if he's fully equipped or ever been in this specific situation before. So he's having to manage this person in a situation that is like so foreign to the Sounders, because this has never happened before. They don't really make these kind of big signings at this age and then have them be, have some adversity. The last time that happened was Leo Chu, and I don't think that was handled well. So I think Brian really has a big, tough task on his hands to like look at himself. All of the front office staff, everyone, it's hard, but I don't think you can call him a bust off of a tumultuous season. No one was calling Evander a bust off of his first tumultuous season. Well, he was more productive.
Some people were. That's a good point, because he had kind of a slow start.
Yeah.
Like DPs, even when they have health, which De La Vega didn't, sometimes they take time to acclimate. I think we might have got spoiled watching Ladero just roll up and become one of the best players in the league and
we've
win
talked
MLS
about that
Cup. But like it doesn't always go like that.
No, I agree with you there. Kenneth asks, score a goddamn goal. For God's sakes. We should pound our fists here, Ari. Yeah, they're way bunkered in, but find a way. Put a ball in the box, use your knee, thigh, stomach, face, ass cheek, whatever. Make Clark make a save at least. Those were some stone cold PKs from the Sounders, though.
Yeah, so I think Kenneth put a voice there to a lot of the frustration that a lot of the fan base was feeling last night. And I mean, you got to be able to score there. You got to score there. They did. Okay, one thing that we didn't talk about was what did you think? I don't want to go like too hard on the refs, but what did you think of the PK that looked like Christian won and got called, but that they waved off? Because I thought that, to me, like the broadcast and everyone was saying, like they instantly were saying that should get waved off. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was like clear and obvious to overturn, but I don't know.
I didn't see it very clearly. I was at the game and they didn't show a replay very well. So like for me personally, I don't know. And I didn't even think I saw a lot of people complaining about the refs. I guess generally, I don't see how that affected the game at all. Like last match we had, a terrible ref, and I felt like this was just fine. Like
Ted Uncle is fine.
Like he's fine. Like he's been a demon to the Sounders in the past, but I don't think he did anything wrong in this match. Like you could blame the VAR if you really thought that was supposed to be a penalty, but like I didn't think it was. I genuinely thought
I'm not aggrieved about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, good points, Kenneth, and also they did the PKs were good. I will say that. Seattle, whenever Seattle's in PKs, save for 2016, which they won famously in Toronto, but it feels like the last few times they've been in PKs, at least in like the MLS playoffs, they've lost. I know they won one in Open Cup this year, but it was good to see them just drill every single.
Oh yeah, they were nasty.
I mean, it's the margins in this stuff are so thin. Like Houston, Fry didn't save their penalty. Like he just put it barely wide, and Seattle wins on that. So they did get lucky. All right, thank you everyone for the questions. Appreciate you as always for getting the discourse flowing. Noah, I got the other round 1, game 1 results written down right here. So to close it out here, let's just go through and give our takes on some of the other games that have taken place in the playoffs so far. We're all round 1, best of 3 now. Wild card is over, and
Minnesota United just won on pens, by the way.
When Minnesota United just beat Real Salt Lake on pens in a 0-0, which that's kind of disappointing. I was hoping for some more fireworks there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a 0-0, so let's not even...
Sorry.
Real Salt Lake, Minnesota United, 0-0, whatever. Loons up 1-0. FC Cincy, 1-0 over NYCFC in the first leg of that, or in the first game of that series. So that was our big upset pick, right?
Yeah.
So that is not looking very good so far. NYCFC couldn't get a goal at TQL, and then... Cincy got one from it was a Lucho assist to Yamil Assad, Atlanta United legend, for the game winner. So I guess my takeaway from this game is that Cincy they got a professional performance, they got the dub, but the way I think of them hasn't changed all that much, in that I think the injuries might be too much for them to really contend in the East. But really, if our NYCFC sneaky pick, which it really wasn't that sneaky, I think a lot of people kind of were touting them based on sort of the same logic that we saw. But like a result was there for the taking for them in this game, and the fact that they couldn't get it done, they are probably chalked.
Yeah, which you got to win at I mean, I think that they could still take a result at Yankee Stadium because it's Yankee Stadium. But then again, you go back, got to play at Cincy. They're warmed up. They know your plan. It's not looking too hot for our bracket here, Ari.
LAFC beat Vancouver 2-1. This was more comfortable, I think, for LAFC than that final score would indicate.
But it's like that's why I miss this 2-leg series with aggregate, because Ryan Gold 90 plus 5 means
that
something.
Would have meant a lot. Yeah, no, it's a good point, and like that adds like. Exactly, like that goal would have changed the whole complexion of the series
if they win,
instead of just not mattering.
If they win on aggregate somehow, I'm claiming my Vancouver pick was good. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to cope with that.
But I didn't think they were really messing with LAFC all that much. They hung with it for a while, more than I thought they would. But I think
they had good possession.
The Whitecaps just they don't have it in this series.
I mean, if you look at the stats, like 15, they each had 15 shots. LAFC had 2 big chances, and Vancouver had 1 big chance. So they finished all of their big chances. The Whitecaps had 51% possession. Like, I think they played them. I mean, it's classic LAFC fashion: cede possession to your opponent, counterattack, whatever. But like, I don't know. I didn't think it was like completely out of the woodwork, and Boanga scored a penalty, so it could have been theoretically, it could have been 1-1. You go to bang, never know. I'm just coping here, Ari. I just want this. I want this Vancouver.
Let's
win.
just hope that the Caps can force the game 3. I think that's the most we can hope for.
Correct.
There. Orlando City pretty easily over Charlotte, which was another 2-0, which was another one where we thought an upset might be in the cards. I picked Orlando,
we both did. I think,
we were saying though that Charlotte might be might be scrappier than some people think. They had a really good defense and the goalkeeper of the year all year. But Orlando looked much more like the hot Orlando down the stretch, and it looks like they're going to win that series relatively easily, although they do have game 2 in Charlotte. I think the most crooked score of all the game ones was the LA Galaxy 5-0ing the Rapids, which we both picked the Galaxy to win this series pretty easily. But I thought this was the game, the quintessential game that shows why Lobbing Scorchers is a Galaxy podcast.
Correct.
When that attack gets rolling, it's the best in MLS this side of Inter Miami, and I don't know if it's better than LAFC's in terms of talent and production. I like it more.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching it more. I like Ricky Puig more than I like Denny Bwanga. I like Joey Paints and Gabriel Peck more than I like Bogus and Giroud.
Yeah. Who are those guys?
So, but like, just when I watch the Galaxy get rolling, I still think they're my favorite team to watch.
That's why I picked them to win the damn league. MLS Cup, folks.
It's not. I mean, we both picked them to go, which shows our bias in this scenario. But the Rapids, they did not have a chance in this game. They're a little further off than I think their end point total this year probably would indicate. But they got to be pretty demoralized going into game 2. Galaxy looked to be moving on pretty easily. Inter Miami got more than they probably expected to from Atlanta United, but they ended up winning 2-1. And frankly, this should have been way more lopsided.
We talked about it briefly on the last pod too. So.
Okay, so this should have been like 4 or 5 goals for Inter Miami, but Brad Guzan went crazy. Yeah, we did talk about this. Okay,
my favorite upset so far.
Yeah, this was a big one from earlier tonight. We're recording this on Tuesday evening. Red Bulls 1-0 over Columbus. Okay.
They had a keeper in. They had a goalkeeper in the goal.
They had a backup goalkeeper, but for the Crew to lose their first game at home against this Red Bulls team, get shut out at home. Look, man, like everyone's pissed about how Seattle played in their game. Seattle got the win.
They did win.
Like Columbus, literally, they lost. They are down 1-0 to the Red Bulls. They're going to Red Bull Arena. They might still win this series, but that's bad. And if the Red Bulls actually pull this off, which they've got to be brimming with belief right now.
Oh yeah,
it would detonate the entire East. Like no one has Columbus going out this early. I think this was probably a fluke, and that Columbus.
But I think that they've got to go to 3 games now if they want to win. Yeah. Which is never. It's not good.
And you're not guaranteed to go take a dub at RBA. The Red Bulls are pretty good at home.
They're good, yeah.
Like there's easily a scenario where I could easily see a scenario where the Red Bulls get them to penalties at home. Yeah. So
and they clearly their game plan worked away. Why would it not work again at home? You know, they can switch up as much as they want, but you know, if Cucho's they effectively defanged Cucho in this match, which is insane. By the way, not the MVP.
Yeah.
Boom.
This is why the playoffs are fun. Like, you know, I think we made the safest picks, or at least I did, but like stuff like this happens, and the crew are on the ropes. So I guess, like I was saying, if you're tilted about how the Seattle game went, totally understandable. At least they got the dub and they're not down 1-0 like the number 2 seed in the East is. So you're allowed to take solace in that. We got another slate of games coming up on Friday. There's Charlotte and Orlando and the Galaxy in Colorado. So both those series look pretty much chalked, but we're churning right along here in the playoffs. I think we're going to call it right there for episode 72. Good episode, Noah. Thank you, as always, to everyone for tuning in. It's fun to have the playoffs going. I'm excited for the rest of it. I know it wasn't the prettiest dub, but Seattle got a dub, so they're in position to move forward. So we might get more playoff soccer after game 2. Still got to win game 2. But like, comment, subscribe, write us reviews.
Share with Vanzier.
Share with the New York Red Bulls.
Yep.
Sub to the YouTube, please.
And remember to always put in a backup goalkeeper.
With that, until next time, we out.
Peace.